Welcome, everybody. We are starting the recording now, and we're good to go. Don't know if we have everybody on. No, we definitely don't. But I think we can go ahead and get started. Bar, do you want to introduce Elizabeth or Earth Day?
Yeah, I can actually do both.
Awesome.
That's fine. Okay.
All yours.
All right, great. So first thing we have on the agenda is new membership, and we have one official new member now. Elizabeth Spike is with us, and she is of course, I've known Elizabeth for quite a while. Some of us have. She's the education program manager at Clean Air Partners and has 20 plus years of experience as environmental educator with extensive experience in classroom teaching, community impact, consulting experience as well, project management, grant writing, and project-based learning and fieldwork. So I would like to introduce to ECO officially Elizabeth Spike and allow Elizabeth to say anything if you wish.
Sure. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. And hello, my fellow work group mates. I look forward to very productive rest of the year. And thank you for including me.
So glad to have you. Amy,
we should mention that Elizabeth has been helping out with the climate teach-in, which we're going to give an update on later, but she has been phenomenal.
Yes.
And she got to come and visit for the first time, the official one that we help organize. This was at Baltimore Poly this year, and it was so great to see her in person. So yeah, we have lots of good things to talk about.
That's right. And helped us out at the Mayo conference too. I remember that.
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that was so long ago.
I know.
Like it was last year.
It does seem that way. Okay. Well, if there's anything else, there's nothing else about adding new members. And of course, it's the ongoing discussion that we may have occasionally. Membership is one of the things that we are focused on to make sure that we have the proper numbers and representation on ECO. So you may see some more new membership items come up later in the future on the agenda. Mm-hmm. So next, we are ready to move on. And the next on the agenda, which is a presentation from Earth Day. We've actually had Earth Day speak to us before. I'm not exactly sure how long ago it was. I know it was sometime last year, a few months. So we have Mr. Bryce Kuhn and Dennis Nalesko here. Bryce is the Director of Education with earthday.org, and Dennis is the Education Coordinator. So on that note, I will let you all give any other introductions of your organization and what you do if you wish, and then we can go straight into the presentation.
All right, sounds great. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Bryce Kuhn, Director of Education with earthday.org. Personally, for this role, I was a classroom teacher in Maryland for a little over a decade. So I taught in Montgomery County, social studies, and now work with Earth Day, which is, if you think back to actually the very first Earth Day, was a lot about planning events on campuses, having teach-ins. So there's always been this environmental education component to it. And now we're very focused on climate education. So really excited to present with you today. My voice might go out a little bit, or I might cough during my presentation. But luckily, we're on Zoom and not in a room together, so you're not going to get sick. Dennis, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name's Dennis Nalesko. I'm an education coordinator at earthday.org. Similar to Bryce, I was a middle school teacher for 7 years prior to this. I worked in Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles County as well. And yeah, no, we just had a very busy past week. Happy Earth Month, everybody. Yeah, Earth Day was last week, so I hope everybody was able to engage. But yeah, we have a really great presentation for you guys about the SEAL potential opportunity here for the state of Maryland, which is the SEAL of Climate Literacy. So I'll pull up that tab. Give me one moment. Okay.
So Dennis taught in Virginia, or should we still let him share today? Okay, all right. Just teasing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the first few slides, and then I'll hand it over to Dennis. So again, we're talking about the SEAL of Climate Literacy today, which is a a movement that's really growing. Dennis, if you go to the next slide, you can see there's a lot of organizations that are supporting the Seal of Climate Literacy. You see, it's supported by teachers unions like AFT and NEA, and big groups like National Wildlife Federation, our partners Subject to Climate, who produce a lot of climate materials for students. I mean, you can see all the groups there. Just a lot of groups are supporting this legislation that originally, well, if you go to the next slide, just to tell you a little bit about the seal, it's an endorsement that students can have on their diploma, and it was launched through bipartisan legislation in Colorado. So Colorado was the first state to have the Seal of Climate Literacy, and then recently Maine adopted the Seal of Climate Literacy through the Department of Education. And there is current legislation pending in 2 other states. So there's just a lot of conversation around the Seal of Climate Literacy. And it is relatively, it's not a huge lift for districts and state houses. It was a very small fiscal note. In Colorado, I think it was $17,000 was the fiscal note. So districts are the ones who are doing the work for certifying this seal. Next slide. So Maryland already has a strong precedent with seals. We have the Seal of Biliteracy and the Seal of Civic Excellence. And so one of the reasons why, when I first heard about the Seal of Climate Literacy, I was, sort of all in, is because I like the fact that it's working with this framework that teachers and students are already familiar with. So I don't know if you're all familiar with the Seal of Biliteracy, especially because that's been around longer, but students will take an assessment to prove that they are biliterate, and then they get this seal on their diploma. And all of my students knew what the Seal of Biliteracy was. And so by having the Seal of Climate Literacy, again, you're operating in this framework that teachers and students already know. So it is like a new thing, but it's something that people would be able to wrap their heads around. And I think that's part of the reason why, in Colorado, it grew very quickly. Many students added the seal. Next slide. So first state was Colorado. And so this creates a voluntary, it's not a mandate, it's voluntary for schools to participate in this. And you can just imagine, that somebody would, in the district is, looking at the criteria, would award this to their students. The fiscal note, they said roughly 20,000. I think it was 17,000, but not a large fiscal note. And we have, we can share the slides, and we have the bill text from the state of Colorado. Next slide. And then, as I said, Maine did this through the Department of Education. So it really depends on the state how they're, going to go about this. We reached out to MSDE, and we were, kind of hope. I mean, that's like the quicker route, right? I mean, Virginia is looking at this right now. Virginia's Department of Education is looking at this, and they're very interested in it. And they've already had, conversations with the governor's office in Virginia. MSDE got back to us pretty quickly and said that that it needs to go through the legislative process. Next slide. Okay. Hand it over to my colleague Dennis for the rest of the slides.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. Yeah, so as you can see, there is already kind of a national movement happening with the Seal of Climate Literacy. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. Again, youth are asking for this. Youth want hands-on learning experiences. So in the next slide, I'll explain it. But, they take 2 classes that are related to climate education, but they also have to do a capstone experience or project that kind of shows off the skills that they learn. So definitely youth are really engaged in this. Like Bryce mentioned, the low fiscal note. That's also, I think, what a lot of people really enjoy is that it's not a mandate. It's really up to each local education agency, so each school district, to decide if they want to do this. So, let's say if students in Prince George's County, which is already doing a lot of great work in terms of the Green Schools Initiative, a lot of them would probably already qualify for the seal of climate literacy without having to do a lot of extra work. And again, this is something that would make them competitive when they're up against other students from other states and applying for different jobs for college. And again, it's something that is opt-in and not something that is forced upon the school districts. In terms of how to attain the seal of climate literacy, like we said, we're working with this national coalition, and they do want to keep the requirements pretty similar across all states, but essentially it comes down to academic courses. So 2 of them, usually some kind of earth science or science related class that they already may be doing to count towards graduation, but then also something else in another discipline. So a humanities class, a CTE course that possibly integrates climate education. And then, like I mentioned, a final experiential project. So it could be field work, it could be an internship, it could be a community project, it could be led by the school or community partners. So honestly, the really cool thing about the seal of climate literacy is there's lots of flexibility. So each local education agency has the ability to kind of design it however they think would work best with their community. Yeah, and here are just some examples of how they've done it in Colorado. So just a reminder that this was back in 2024. So they've had 1 full year of the seal of climate literacy, and then next month will be a new group coming out with the seal of climate literacy. But you can see there's arts and media projects, there's advocacy that they could do, the internships and work-based learning, so they really get hands-on experience. So there's lots of different ways that students can demonstrate their learning. And again, that's something that each school district can really decide how that project is going to look. Yeah, the local control is really essential. And I could already see in Maryland, lots of school districts who are already doing similar initiatives. This could be something that is not a heavy lift. Lots of hands-on learning, lots of community-based projects. And again, it's designed to be accessible. So it doesn't require any AP classes, doesn't require a lot of extra work from the students' parts. It really is designed to be accessible and equitable for everybody. Yeah, and as we mentioned, students are asking for this, by a lot of different surveys. Students, especially in Maryland, 86% of students are asking for climate education. They want this type of work. This makes it also, the fact that this is not just embedded in the science classes, makes it universal. So we're talking about climate education, not just in science class, but in English class, in history, in music, in art, in CTE classes. And again, it prepares the students with real world skills that will make them more competitive in the green economy. These are just some facts from Colorado. So during the first year, over 400 students were able to get the seal of climate literacy. There was 14 school districts that participated in this, and a significant portion of them, about 1/3, were in small or rural communities. And again, it's something that is growing, it's scalable. They're already expecting triple the number of students to receive the seal of climate literacy next month. And as Bryce mentioned, there is lots of growth happening. Like he mentioned, in California, it's been introduced in the legislative process. Minnesota, New Jersey, Maine got it done through the Department of Education. So, we definitely know that Maryland has been at the forefront of environmental education in the past, but we definitely want to make sure that they stay on top of things. And, we want to make sure that students in Maryland have access to the seal of climate literacy. And then here are some ways that Earth Day and Lyra, which is the group that started the movement in Colorado, could support. We could offer fundraising opportunities, work together to create mini grants for school divisions. We could co-design some kind of recognition for the students so that they can show off their seal on their diploma, and also wear something on their gown that could show that they are climate literate. We're actually currently in the process of designing websites for each state that has introduced or has passed the seal of climate literacy, with how-to guides and lots of different information available for those in that state. And then more than anything, like we said, it's a national movement. We want to create this community of practice. So, students in Maryland can see what students in California are doing, or Colorado or Hawaii, and get some ideas of how they can maybe bring some of that to their own community. So it's part of a bigger movement is the really important thing that I think lots of students and lots of school districts will see. And that's kind of all the information we have for you today. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and I really do hope that the work group considers this as possibly a recommendation for the governor's office to have the seal of climate literacy become a reality for the students in Maryland. There we go.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for that. If you don't mind, I'll start off. I do have quite a few questions. Good questions. So hopefully, I think they're probably quick and easy. The first question is, it was such a minimal expense. Yeah, I think you said $17,000. But what exactly is that for? Just out of curiosity.
Well,
I mean, what was the $17,000 used to? I mean, is it like the
Right.
actual physical
So-
seal on the diplomas or something, or?
No. So it's somebody in the education department for Colorado, and they basically oversee the entire initiative. But really, it's like I said, it's each school district would be kind of deciding how they run the seal of climate literacy, and essentially just the person at the at MSDE would just be kind of compiling the data, seeing how many students do the seal of climate literacy, what classes are being accepted. So I think from what Lyra has told us, they basically kind of added it on as a part-time position in their Department of Education. But yeah, it's but most of the work is done at the district level, is what why the fiscal note is so low.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you look into the fiscal note, it created a 0.2 FTE position, and I'm not sure, potentially that was, maybe someone was part-time and they have to, increased it. I'm not sure they hired someone specifically for that, but that's kind of the degree of the state involvement in this. Yeah.
Okay. And then go ahead, Amy.
Well, I have a follow-on question to that. So then if the state involvement is pretty low, what is the LEA involvement and commitment?
So, I mean, they're going to be looking to see that the students completed those courses and completed the projects. Now, how they implement that, I mean, I think if we just look at whether they took the 2 courses or not, like that's a pretty quick check, right? I mean, there's someone who's already looking at what courses students have took. It's in their program. I don't think that's a huge lift. The lift does become the projects, right? So you're turning in the projects, and that could be someone at central office for a large district who could be, sort of, determining whether the projects satisfy the credential. It could be, if it's through like a club, it could be the club sponsor, sort of how, it could be how like student service learning hours are, approved. So again, it leaves it up to the district and how to do it. It does create, I think it's a small lift, but there is a lift on the school district there. But I think it's, I think it's important, and I think that, we're going to see, hopefully more and more states, doing this, and the fact that Colorado has done it, now Maine hopefully they're seeing it's manageable.
You're
Jabari, I think
muted, Jabari.
Thank you. I'm talking away too. Thank you all. No, I was actually saying, I think that's actually a benefit to have it optional for school districts, because one thing that we've learned about through the teaching is that there are different priorities sometimes in certain school districts. And so I think that is a good idea to have it. The state offers it, but it's optional for certain districts. And I'll let Jared ask a question, but I do have another, maybe a question or two after that.
Yeah, thanks, Jabari. You mentioned a statistic that I found interesting. You said that 86% of students were interested in climate education. And I'm misremembering, but I thought you said it was also a Maryland specific statistic. Where did that come from? And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's from the Yale Climate Institute, right, Bryce? And so they did a survey of teachers and students. The data is a little bit older, but I think it was maybe 2020. And yeah, students and teachers, they want climate education. And honestly, especially on the teacher end, a lot of times they want to teach about it in their subject area, but don't know how to integrate it. So really, it's people want to discuss this, want to learn about it, want to know what they can do, but they don't know how. And one way that you could do this is kind of a separate conversation. But for example, like we offer professional development for educators, and that's one way that they could be instructed on how to teach climate education.
We do have a document. I don't think it's linked on our website that we could share, which is the case for climate education in Maryland. I think that data was national, the 86%. I think that's might have just been like, Maryland students in terms of like, all students are asking for this. But it is a very high percentage of students that want to be learning more, and I think I saw that as an educator as well. Students kind of feel like people are not doing enough, and there's definitely a lot of climate anxiety, and you don't solve climate anxiety by just ignoring the issue. You have to have to face it head on.
Well, Jared, I appreciate that question, because that was one of the questions I had. I was curious about where that came from. So
We made it up. No, just kidding.
yeah, no.
I'll send over. There's a document we have that I can send over to everybody.
Okay. I'll add these two questions together, and that's it for me. But this may seem obvious to everybody here, but how would you define how this really helps someone? How would this seal benefit?
You're muted again.
You muted yourself, Jabari.
I don't know how that happened.
Well, I unmuted myself. I don't think I did that. Let me move my mouse so this won't happen again. I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize. So I'll add these two questions together. I was asking, even though it may seem obvious to us, how do you think this would benefit someone having the seal on their, I guess it's on their diploma, whether they're going to higher education or they're going to their career? And the second part is, what would you like from ECO? Like, how would you want us to be involved, if at all?
Yeah, I would say, when thinking about the seal, there's two different ways to think about how it helps. And so thinking about kind of how it helps the student, and then how it, kind of helps society at large, or helps Maryland at large. And so for students, it's just one more thing that students can achieve that shows what their interests are and what their passions are, and could make them more desirable to maybe an apprenticeship. You could picture, imagine a student, maybe the 4-year degree is not for them, and they're looking at apprenticeships, and they're passionate about, the green economy, and they have this, and it just kind of helps them, stand out a little bit more. Or maybe they see it, maybe a counselor's like, hey, you're not doing the 4-year degree thing. Like this seal could kind of help you stand out a bit. And maybe they discover a passion and interest that they didn't know. And that's kind of the other side of that, which is, I think in Maryland, we'd agree we want a climate literate, society. We want climate literate workers. We want people who are interested in the green economy. That's a big, passion for Westmore. And so having this seal also, kind of pulls more people into that, that understanding. So.
And then you said, what would we like to see eco?
Yeah.
I mean, like Bryce mentioned, we did approach MSDE, and they essentially said this is not doable just through the Department of Education. They said it has to go through the legislative process. And so, our ask is either, as one of your recommendations, I know that the eco group submits their recommendations every year. It could be one, or I know that you all also have a close working relationship with Delegate Stein. And he was actually here on our previous presentation that we did. Maybe talking to him. We've had early conversations with his office as well. But yeah, I mean, those would probably be the two asks that we would have, either the recommendations or maybe talking to Delegate Stein or another delegate who'd be interested in having them bring this to the floor.
Okay. All right. I think that's fair. Your request.
I see Donald also has a question. Sorry, I didn't want to leave him hanging.
Oh, I'm sorry, Donald. I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you. I have a few questions, but whatever we have time for, just let me know when to be quiet. But the first question is centered around. So what I gather is it will be on the LEA to sort of decipher which students have fulfilled the requirements based on specific courses, right? And then also, like, there's the project component, and that's probably more intensive because you have to look at individual elements of the student project. But in terms of, like, let's start with the courses. Is it the LEA? Is it a general, like, national body? Where does the alignment with which courses count within, like, the school district offerings that counts as those two courses toward the seal?
Yeah, I think that would be up to the district to determine that. And it's another reason why, like Jabari question about, why it's good for students, but there's so many things about introducing the seal that just kind of creates more opportunities for climate education. So I can imagine the LEA saying, all right, we need to have some courses that we need to make sure that they're touching on climate. And so, as a former global issues, like current events kind of course teacher, and I also taught economics, micro and macro, and like you can imagine just being, hey, we need you to incorporate some climate into your subject. And so that's another way that it could be included, or just asking teachers, how are you teaching about climate, and then realizing what courses would qualify.
Okay, and then is there specific like guidelines in terms of, right, like the amount of, let's say it's, I'm a local, state, national government educator, and I'm a science supervisor, but let's say I'm introducing this to a social studies supervisor, and they're interested in, if it's not already there, because incorporating climate education into the curriculum. Are there guidelines as to, is it an activity? Is it multiple days? Is there an hour requirement in terms of what meets that requirement?
Yeah. So I can, that's where it's going to be left up to the district. And, that's the idea, is to keep the general requirements for the seal the same, is to have there be a course requirement and a project requirement. And one of those courses is going to be your mandatory science class anyways, right? And then, doing the project as well. So it comes to, when you have those components, the district can figure out what it takes to have that seal. And but by having it, kind of have the same name across states, it starts to have a little bit more value. As then, in the later stages, you can imagine groups like ourselves or Lyra, talking to colleges and universities and trade schools, and trying to raise awareness for the seal so that they know what it is and they recognize it and it has value.
I just want to add one thing too, is like Bryce mentioned, is also there's precedent with the seal of biliteracy, which is actually in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Maryland got the seal of biliteracy back in 2016. And again, I need to look again, but I'm not sure if all the states have the exact same requirements, but again, it's the same under the same umbrella. People in Maryland students in Maryland can get the seal of biliteracy, as well as, California, Texas. And it's all, under the same umbrella.
Okay, no, appreciate that. Another question
We'll probably wrap it up
surrounding,
after this one, Donald.
sounds good. Another question is associated with like within Maryland. This one will be quick. Have you already connected with the Climate Literacy Institute folks? Because they're running. It sounds like a very similar objective and a program that they've grown within Maryland to have students like receive like a graduation cord and like a certain acknowledgement upon graduation. So could be an opportunity to join forces.
Yeah, we have not worked with them, but definitely, yeah, that could be a good connection. So we can definitely make that connection.
Okay. Thanks,
Well,
Donald.
we appreciate
Yeah.
everyone's time, and we just being a Marylander and having taught in Maryland schools, I'd like to see us be a leader in this. And another view that I have that I know it's maybe not Maryland specific, but what I see happening is more and more states introducing this. And what I'm really excited for down the road is it putting pressure on other states to adopt it as students want it, and then maybe even in states that don't necessarily want to offer it. You can imagine, if 30 states had the seal of climate literacy, some of those purple states are like, well, I guess we got to do this, and it just gets more climate education to students out there. So thank you again. Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that thought. Absolutely. By the way, you all are more than welcome to stay as a public meeting if you want, or if you have to go, we totally understand. So we appreciate the presentation, and hopefully we'll be following up in some way soon.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Amy, I'm turning over to you now, of course, if you know. About
For the climate teaching
teaching.
update.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today is the last day. So if folks haven't registered their events, please do so. The survey is still open. Currently, we have just under 375 registrants for the teach-in, which means that we increased the same volume that we did last year. We went up 150 last year, and looks like we're going to go up at least 150 this year, hopefully a little more. I did a quick review of the registrations. The top registrants are, not surprising, Baltimore Poly, and we'll tell you about the event that happened there earlier in the month. Second place is Towson University than they were last year. They did reach out to us about that, but last year they had 21 registrants, this year 7. Ring Factory Elementary School actually has 12, which is amazing, and Northwestern High School has 5. For sure, Prince George's County has the most registrants of overall school systems. So that's always wonderful. Thank you, Don. One school that I haven't seen that is missing, that to me is glaring, is Barnesville. 0 registrants. So I feel like we need to reach out to them individually, not through mass email, and be like, hey, what are you guys doing? Are you doing this year? So Jared, is something you might want to think
What's
about.
Barnesville?
Barnesville School. Yeah, they had,
And why is that specifically important?
well, they had double digits registrations last year and now they have 0. Yeah. So they were pretty involved. I think they won one of the prizes too. So, yeah, it would be,
And
it
then
would be good to
remind
reach out
us,
to them.
was there a cutoff and actually in on the registrations? Was there like a certain day? I mean, I know today's the last day for the month, but I mean, can people still register and put their events up until next week? I can't remember what we said about that.
It's up to y'all. I can leave it open, but we can make them not eligible for prizes because we have to pick prizes next week.
Yeah.
It's up to y'all whether you want me to leave the form open. In the past, we've shut it down.
My opinion would be to leave it open a few more days, maybe
Okay.
like Monday or Tuesday next week.
Okay.
Because there's still maybe some people who could still register
Mhm.
their events from April. I'm going to reach out to a few myself. So I'm hoping that we'll get a few more at least. So that's what I was.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have to send out the follow-up surveys. They will go out next week as well. Once we shut the form down, we'll send them out, and that's how we collect our kind of feedback on it, what the teachers actually did, as well as photographs and things like that. So,
Okay.
but still, I mean, 375 is amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared.
Is that 375 including what I sent you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, this year was the first year that we did kind of like the group registration. We sent out a spreadsheet and we got 4 of those back so far. 2 of them we sent out, we have not gotten back. So we're pretty excited about that. Hopefully we'll have some more group registrations. Yeah, I could AI and see what county did the best. Let me see. In the meantime, we can talk about the Baltimore Poly event, which was amazing. Vicky put together we started at like 9:45, I guess, and went all the way through to 2 p.m. with her students. Some of the students got a chance to really teach us what they did, and we got to tour their facilities, which was incredible. Then we went out, we had lunch out in the park, and they broke out and they had specific talks about certain topics. It was amazing to see what Poly's doing, how brilliant these high school students are. Yeah, just fabulous. So what else? What else am I missing, Jabari? Jared, there's so much.
It is so much. I think you've covered pretty much everything. Yeah, Tristan. Well, oh yeah.
I will say, because I keep forgetting, see, the climate meetings for that are happening like pretty much every week. So I keep forgetting what we haven't told you. So we didn't tell everybody that Constellation came in as a major sponsor this year for the first time. So we actually had a much larger sponsorship pool. We are so grateful to them. They were on site at Poly. We have been including them. We sent out social media posts thanking them. So we're just really grateful to Constellation for stepping up and supporting the teach-in.
I think something else we didn't mention to everyone is that you and I did a radio show at the beginning of the month.
We did.
It seems like it's been so long ago. I mean, it was only 3 weeks ago. Gosh. But yeah, that was one of the things we're doing to promote the climate teach-in. Amy and I were part of, I think it was WLIF, part of Odyssey, which has a network of radio stations. And we did a 30 minutes, right? No. Yeah. 30 minutes. Yeah. It aired live on, I think that Sunday morning, but it's still available. I think the link is still out there somewhere.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
In the chat.
Thanks, Jared. I appreciate it. So that was a cool experience. That was both of our first times being in the radio setting that way, and it was really cool. So that was one of the things we're doing to promote the teach-in, and yeah, we're representing Nico. Tristan, I'm sorry, your hand is up.
Oh, I was just going to add that we did the tree planting with the secretary
Yes.
from MBE. That was great to have her there for the whole day, which is hard to clear her schedule.
That's true.
And one of my favorite highlights was that the students that were present weren't just from Polytech. There are a couple other
Great point.
Baltimore City schools that were invited to participate. So it really showed like the cross-school collaboration.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is something I want to mention because I'm just proud, but we had an opportunity to plant some seeds as well. And the little pot with 4 different sections, all 4 of mine sprouting some little, seedlings. So I wasn't sure. I didn't think I was watering it enough or something, but I'm starting to see something. I think I did basil and I can't remember the other one.
Yeah, I did
basil's that
parsley.
cool. Yeah,
I
that's
did
it. Basil and
parsley,
parsley. Yeah.
Yep. So
Mhm.
teaching's going well, I think, is really the summary of it. Not done yet, still going, but yeah, I think it's going really well. Thank you to Elizabeth, who has helped us with sponsorships and helped us organize the event. Thank you to Anne at Youth Climate for getting like all the social media stuff organized. I mean, it's been a team effort. Jessica Fessler got us hooked up with Odyssey to do the radio spot. Jared's been sending out all the emails. I mean, just so many people playing big roles in this. One thing we do need to discuss as a group, we started talking about this and want to get your feedback on it, is an off ramp for it. I don't think this committee can keep running this event in perpetuity. As it grows, it has already started to outgrow our bandwidth. So I'd love thoughts and feedback on considerations on ways to off ramp this to someone else to manage, be that a state agency like MDE or MSDE or a nonprofit, should they step up to do it. So I would love to kind of have a discussion about that before we move on to another topic. Any thoughts or concerns?
Do most of y'all at least agree?
Tristan.
Is that a yes, Tristan, or you have a question?
I have a comment. Like,
Okay.
yes, it's getting really big. Yes, it's a lot to manage. Also, I'd be really sad to see it leave ECO because we've worked so hard to get it going,
Mhm.
put our brand on it. I think it's done a lot for the visibility of the Climate Change Commission. And I don't want to lose those aspects. So my first question was really going to be along the lines of like, are there aspects of the teach-in that feel unmanageable? Maybe we pass off hosting the kickoff or the summit or whatever it is, the like physical event to a partner entity, and we're still doing other bits of it, or sort of dividing the tasks differently, if that was the pain point.
Well,
That's a really good point.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, no, I was gonna say my opinion was probably the opposite of what you're saying, and this is what I'm thinking. The actual sending out the emails and the list, getting the list updated and all that takes a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work. I mean, and Amy and Jared have done a lot with this. I feel like the planning of the teach-in actually was probably the more pleasurable part of it. That's my opinion. It's something that we could probably manage a little bit better than all the rest of it. It's just so many moving parts, and oftentimes we don't really get to talk to you all about all those different things. But it's a lot, and so I think that's the part really, if anything, that should go somewhere else, and maybe we can manage the actual event part. So that's the way I was looking at it. But I am interested in hearing what others think too. And there's something else I want to add on really quick too, Amy, because I don't know when we updated ECO on this, because I think the last time we met was February, right?
Right. It's been a while.
So I don't think we updated the entire group on our push to the legislature or the General Assembly to pass the bill for Climate Education Month. Most of you are already aware, but that's something that we've been doing for the last 3 years. We did it 2 years ago. And we unfortunately really have a chance to last year. Our sponsor, Delegate Stein, had a lot of other bills. So we weren't able to do anything last year, but we tried again with a new delegate. Please remind me his name again.
Delegate
Marino.
Moreno.
Thank you.
Moreno.
Delegate Marino. And I wasn't able to provide oral testimony this time, but we did have Kim. I can't remember his name. This
Kim Coble.
Thank you,
Kim
Coble.
Coble.
Yeah, Kim Coble. From the Conservation League voters. If I'm saying that right. She
Maryland
brought-
League of Conservation Voters.
Okay, thank you. She provides incredible testimony on behalf of support for the bill, and it didn't go through. It didn't pass the House this time, like it did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it passed the House and got stalled in the Senate. The Key Bridge collapse happened around that time, so everything kind of paused. So we were hoping that it would go through again. It did not. So we've been pushing hard for it, and just don't think we have the bandwidth for that particular aspect right now. We tried.
Yeah.
However, the good news is Governor Moore's office has proclaimed Climate Education Month in Maryland for 3 years in a row. So that's, well, I'm sorry. It was Climate Education Week, now Climate Education Month.
Laura?
That's great, Jabari. About the Governor Moore's proclamation. I am wondering if there was any feedback from the committee where it got, where it didn't get out of or whatever, as to why it didn't go out of the House and cross over.
Got this.
You have
Yeah,
that?
yes, I can comment to that, Laura. So, and that was what I was raising my hand for, was that, I want to make sure that everyone understands that it wasn't necessarily a reflection of any resistance to Climate Education Month into itself. It was really about just the influx of commemorative bills that are similar to what we were pushing, that we were there with, I don't know how many other bills that were pushing their own and unto themselves very important issues. But, I think that that there was a pushback against all of these commemorative bills coming in and saying that there's so many that it's overwhelming the committee. So they just decided not to really do any of them, except for the Megalodon as the state shark, which that one got through. But all the others, unfortunately, kind of were, cut all at once.
Well, and I want to point out that it was going through a different committee this year. It was a completely different committee this year. And it's the committee where all those commemorative bills go. So that, and being there just made it more challenging.
No, the nice thing about, if we were to pursue what Bryce and Dennis were talking to us about today, is that, that bill would not be put through that same process. That would go through probably a similar committee to what we dealt with originally. So we wouldn't get stuck in that same, rut that we did this time.
Good point. Thanks for that question, Laura, because that was an important question to know why. So. Okay. Is that it for the Maryland climate teaching as of now? Okay.
Well, that's actually a great transition into the next topic, where it's an externship in university support. And this is a in response to bandwidth restrictions. ECO working group, unlike some of the other working groups, we're very action oriented. We don't just recommend. We don't just learn and talk and recommend. We are doing things, whether that's outreach, whether that's the teach-in, whether that's actually, supporting this bill and trying to engage with legislators to push that through. So we recognize that we have a limited bandwidth and we have limited resources. We do rely on MD, but we're even stretching those resources a little thin at this point. And in addition to that, at one of the more recent commission meetings, there was a big discussion about, we really need climate awareness in Maryland. And, we recognized, and they recognized, that we have put a bill forward or put a recommendation forward for that for years. But it, never got included in a report because of funding. So they recognize the need, but they also recognize that funding is the biggest challenge and it's simply not there. And they've kind of tasked us with trying to address that. And one of the ways that we thought about doing that was to build a relationship with the university and let their comms program develop the campaign for us. We also talked about possibly getting an extern, which would be an unpaid internship, because we just don't have enough, we don't have enough bodies at this point to do the work that we need to do. We had a talk earlier yesterday about the externship, and the challenges associated with that are pretty great. That person would need to be supervised. They would need access to certain things. They would need resources, a computer, something, files. So we're probably not going to go down that route unless someone can offer us an idea of how to do that. The Stevenson University, which has a communications program, does have an agency built into their communications program that they do take on clients, nonprofits. We're not an official nonprofit, so I have a meeting scheduled to talk to them about this. It's called the Mill Agency, and they will take your organization on as a client. They already have a client for the 2026-2027 school year, but they're interested in taking us on for the 2027-2028 school year in terms of developing the full campaign of how do we get Marylanders to understand what's happening with climate change, what they can do individually, and what they can advocate for. So I wanted to put that out as a thought. As I have this kind of meeting scheduled. There's nothing official, obviously, but to get feedback on thoughts about using that as a way to advance climate literacy in the state. Nobody? No feedback? Good idea, bad idea? Any concerns?
Amy, I'm sorry. The commission tasked us with finding funding to support this campaign.
No. They tasked us with improving climate awareness in the state, basically with no funding.
Okay, so keep doing what we're doing, but do it better.
But do more of it. Yeah.
But do it bigger.
No money.
And
With no money.
your thought is to partner with a university that we could be a client of. They would.
So the thought with the partnership is that, I think that we have platforms that we can use to get the messaging out through state agencies, right? MDE has their own social, Maryland Mass Transit, they have their own social, and they do, the buses have advertising on them. So there are places that we can put these things. We have nothing to place. We don't have any kind of cohesive branded messaging about this. And that's what I think we need in order to actually start to drive awareness. I mean, it's got to be something that clicks into residents and business owners, something that they can engage and understand with very quickly. It needs somebody to develop a campaign. So that's my thought there. Laura, excuse me.
Could we develop the strategy for that as part of the committee? But I do feel like we need to go back to the commission and say, look, there's only so much that we can realistically do without any kind of funding at all. And in order to drive this awareness and potentially to attract funders, is there any investment that the Climate Commission could provide that would give that kind of foundation and seed money? I just think it's an ask that, but we have to have something that would go to them that would say, here's the plan. Here's what we think we can do.
Yeah. And the challenge with, and Jared, why don't you go first before I talk about some of the challenges with the commission kind of running this thing?
Sure. Yeah, I think I was going to echo a little bit of what Laura just said, and that I think that it's important to recognize the realistic limitations this committee. And, you know, the expectation that ECO is going to be responsible for a statewide climate education program where we have materials and also distribute those materials. Yeah,
Oh, I'm not saying
I'll leave
that.
it. I'm just saying, you know, that in my opinion, I don't know if that's something that is something that is realistic to achieve. I think that ECO's strength, and we've done this, and you know, even with our next item on the agenda, where Tristan's going to tell us about the OLP effort for the Green Careers update, is that I think that ECO's strength is as a supporter, you know, bringing light to things, connecting people, making those recommendations to the governor and General Assembly. So, you know, there are a lot of efforts that are already going on in the state right now, and there are other opportunities for us to recommend things like what we saw in today's presentation to the General Assembly to do even more through those already established channels. So maybe we don't put so much pressure on ourselves to do all of that work within this committee, and more think about how we can best utilize our resources and collective expertise to push for those efforts that, you know, maybe can happen in a more organic way where there's already some resources and structure.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I have to jump off the meeting in 3 minutes because I've triple booked today. But I mean, I will say my thought on this was, number one, my thought on this was that this would remove the work of developing the messaging from us. And then it's our job to get that out to people, to connect those resources and get it out. But at least there's a unified message, which we don't have. There's nothing to get behind here in the state, which is part of the problem. So that was my thought with the university relationship, because honestly, branding and messaging is a thing. I mean, and it's not something we can do as a group. It's, you know, you need the people that are focused on that. I don't have the bandwidth certainly to dedicate to it. My comms team doesn't, that's why the students are an option, because we don't have the money to pay for folks. We also don't have the infrastructure to pay for folks. And I saw one comment came in about getting a grant. We have no ability to accept a grant or administer a grant because we are not even a nonprofit. We aren't a physical organization that can accept that. And I would love to get a grant, but we even talked about grants last year. But we have no way to accept it and administer it. So there's really no way for us to do that unless we do it through a nonprofit. So, you know, which is why we've so graciously worked with Laura to help us with the teach-in, because we can't accept sponsorships. It's a frustration. So, and the state agencies don't have the funding to do any of this, really. They have resources, but they don't have funding. So, I don't know, it's something to think about. We don't have to make a decision today. I will learn more about the program and report back on that at our next meeting. How about that? See what it is they could do.
Sounds good.
Amy, I also popped another university partner idea into the chat.
Okay.
I haven't personally worked with University of Maryland PALS program, but I have people in my unit at DNR who have.
Yeah, and Laura put a question in there as well about universities doing this pro bono. Yes, they do. That was my point. These when the universities take you on, they do it because they're giving their students real life experience, something that they can hang their hat on. I did messaging for this, or I did a brand for that, like that, you know. So it's actually a kind of a win-win for everybody involved, but it's something we would have to oversee. And I kind of want to find out what they would need from us to do it. But I do think it would be amazing to have. So. Well, the meetings, there's more on the agenda, and I'm so sorry I have to jump off, but thank you all for your feedback on that.
Appreciate it, Amy. All right, so I know a few of you actually have to go, so we're going to move along pretty swiftly. Now, Tristan, were you going to kind of report out on the Green Careers update?
Yes.
Okay.
If that's what we want to use the rest of our time to, or I mean, not.
Yeah, we might touch on the recommendations. We probably won't get too deep into that, but yes, we don't have too much more to go.
Okay, great. So I am the co-chair of the Outdoor Learning Partnerships College and Green Careers Committee. We focus in statewide coordination, K through 12, and a little bit into higher ed, focus on environmental literacy, and obviously Green Careers subgroup is all about how can we connect our students who are headed straight into careers after K-12 or into college afterwards with more green career, conservation career awareness. That's it in a very tiny little nutshell. The subcommittee, which I'm also part of, is we are updating what's currently called the Maryland Conservation Careers Guide. We're going to rebrand it a little bit as the Green Careers Guide, just to make it a little more inclusive. But we are in our refresh phase. And let me pop the link to the existing guide if you haven't had a chance to look at it. We are looking at which sectors, industry segments, whatever you want to call them, are currently represented in the guide, and then which ones are missing. This guide was last, we published it in probably early 2021. So it's been a little while. There are a lot of industries out there that weren't really as big then as they are now. And so I guess kind of, let's see, I'm going to show a quick list of the industries. I tried to get this to fit on my screen a little bit better, but it didn't work. Okay, so I have a list of 23 industry segments that we want to represent in the guide. The ones that are in yellow are ones that currently exist. Everything else needs to be created from scratch. So there are a couple of ways you can get involved if you're interested. You can volunteer to edit an existing chapter, which means looking at the resources that are listed. Does this make sense? Is it still current? Are these organizations still a good representation of that? You can be a resource if you want to review a certain sector that maybe you have a lot of experience in. For example, I'm going to say, oh no, we don't have anybody that can really look at this horticulture chapter and say, yes, this is accurate for the horticulture field. If you are a horticulturalist or work with them and you feel like you have the expertise to say yeah, this looks good, please let me know. Or if you are interested in providing a career spotlight on yourself or somebody you work with that gives us a personal aspect or personal feel for a day in the life. What is your job like? Who do you work with? What kind of work do you do? How did you get here? What do you like about your job? Those sorts of things. I would love to offer more of those. It's really helpful for our readers to understand that there are real people doing these jobs and they have all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences, and we want to get as much of it represented as we can. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions or want to share some ideas or anything that maybe I could put in my notes to come back to as we're editing this? Yes, Jared.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat too, but just because the example you gave was horticulture, just thinking who in our connections is good for that. Brittany Rigdon, who was our 2025 spokesperson for the teach-in, is a horticulture teacher at the Cecil County School of Technology, was their teacher of the year. She's fantastic. She might know about horticulture, so I'd be happy to connect you via email in case she's interested in that.
Sure. I will have you hold that until I get ready, and then I'm like, okay, they're ready for review. Who do we have on deck? I'll let you know. We haven't found anything. Thanks.
No, this looks great, Tristan. It's good to see all the different categories that you outlined there. And it looked like you covered just about anything I could think of. Now, something like climate it is. Climate seems to be very broad, so I'm not sure if that what that would entail, or if that needs to be broken down even further. But
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
climate is a tricky one because,
Yeah.
we wanted to be able to include it as its own. There are a lot of jobs that work specifically with climate, but it's also one that can be like integrated throughout lots of other types of jobs. So
Mhm.
maybe there's a little aside to say, hey, by the way, it can connect to a lot of these different ones.
Yeah. Okay. And then 10, you have health/planning/design.
Yeah, they don't, I mean, so the way these got lumped together was I was looking at college graduation or college degrees related to green careers,
Hmm.
and the ones that were in like public health, city planning. I was like, I feel like maybe these can kind of get lumped together. I don't know. So I just
Well,
put
you
them
know
out
what?
there
The fun
together,
thing
but they
is,
might not fit.
well, honestly, I mean, you're right. I mean, but that's the thing. So many of these different things can kind of relate and connect to each other. So that's why it's a difficult thing for these categories. I would probably say health, maybe break it out and have maybe like urban planning and sustainable design as a different category from health.
Right. Okay.
That's just, just a suggestion. And by the way, did you mean to put the link of the last guide in the chat?
Yeah. Did it not go?
I don't know. I don't think it's not a link. It's
Oh.
not for me.
Oh, it is for me. That's confusing.
Yeah,
Wait,
it worked
hold
for
on.
me.
Does it work for everybody else?
Seems to.
Okay, now I see it. Yeah, I got that
It
one.
wasn't a link for me either. I just want to let you know that you're not. It's not.
Okay. It's probably one of those states. It's probably a
Solidarity.
state thing again.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time. I'm sure I will be providing more updates as we go. But that's a little bit on what's happening over there.
This is great. Thanks, Tristan. Thanks so much. Are there any other questions right now? Okay, I'm trying to bring my screen back up so I can see all of you. Okay, so well, next we have on the agenda are the recommendations, and I'll let Jared kind of explain the general process. But this is something that Amy and I and Jared as well decided we're going to try to make this more of a standing item, because this is, at the end of the day, this is the main thing that we provide to the state agency are the recommendations. And I think even Dennis and Bryce, you talked about that earlier in your presentation. And we still have 4 months, but the thing is we only have 2 meetings before these recommendations are due. And actually we want to make sure we go through them, fine tune them and all that before we can get to that point. So Jared, I'll let you kind of just explain the process, and then maybe we'll at least look at the recommendations that we currently have, and maybe just kind of jot down a few ideas. We'll probably do a lot more discussion in our next meeting, but we'll go ahead and get started now.
Thanks, Jabari. Yeah, so zooming out a little bit, just, I know we have some people that are relatively new to this process that are in the room. So what the commission does, its core function is to advise the governor and the General Assembly on ways to mitigate climate change and prepare for climate change. So every year there's an annual report that the commission puts out that includes recommendations from both the working groups and from commissioners on how to approach various strategies to achieve that goal of mitigating climate change. So ECO has 4 recommendations that it can put forward this year. There's a Google form that is going to be filled out. I'll fill out the Google form on ECO's behalf, but ECO will of course decide the recommendations themselves. And the way that this works is we have until September 1st to come up with that set of recommendations and submit it via that Google form. Now, commissioners have a deadline of June 1st for them to submit theirs. And the reason why theirs is earlier is so that we can then redirect their recommendations to the relevant working groups to help them workshop and refine their ideas. Now, the ECO would be under no requirement to actually take on those commissioner recommendations as their own, because again, there's only 4 that are allotted to ECO, but ECO would still be helping them by workshopping and getting the language right so that it is a smoother process when they actually introduce it themselves at the commission. There's a basic structure for what we want to be included in the commission recommendations. And this is on this slide. So they're pretty short and sweet. This has gone through a series of changes over the years. If you look at past commission reports, there's a lot of variety in what they look like. But I think that the commission as a whole was pretty happy with how things went last year, and we're going to try to mostly replicate that same process, which is why a lot of those same dates are pretty much the same as last year as well. But that also is true for the structure. So short, 2 to 3 sentences. Make sure we're spelling out all of our acronyms. We're identifying upfront, who we're saying to take the action, whether that's the governor or the General Assembly, the kind of action that they're going to take, how long they are meant to take it. And this has been a real sticking point in the past, is how to incorporate any sort of budgetary concerns. And what we landed on last year and continued on for this year is that there's no expectation of including a cost estimate, but just because, especially right now, given the budgetary context in Maryland around the deficit, if there is something to include, might be worth mentioning, but you don't have to, and no one's gonna come for you on that necessarily. So again, the deadline is September 1st. Commissioners might have some recommendations that they bring to the committee sometime after June 1st. And, then those are going to be redistributed out for the commission for that regular process of, review, amendment, and then finally voting for inclusion in the annual report by commissioners. And that's going to happen in the November meeting. So that's everything that you need to know about that process. And now ECO's role is, of course, to come up with those 4 ideas, maximum of 4. It doesn't have to be 4. You could do less, but you have up to 4, and I encourage you to use them on, how ECO's, role and education and communication outreach sphere can be incorporated into those recommendations. And I'll stop talking there and hand it back to Jabari.
Appreciate it, Jared. It helps a lot because even though I've been on ECO for a few years now, sometimes I still need a refresher on this process. So are there any questions right now for Jared on the process, on the recommendations, what we've done in the past, anything like that? Okay. So everybody's pretty much, yeah, go ahead.
Would it be possible to see what previous recommendations, like old ones, previous ones have
Yes,
been?
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do is I'll pull up last year's
Mhm.
and I'll share the screen so you can see what they did last year. I'll
Okay.
also put it in the chat, but just for everyone's awareness, going back, I think to 2015, which I believe was the first year that they published it, these annual reports are still available on the commission website. So I'll put that link in the chat. And if you want to go back, review the whole history of them, that's there for you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I don't think we really talked about any, or did we? Did we talk about any possible recommendations in the last meeting? Jared,
We
do you
did not.
remember? Okay, I didn't think so. So we're basically starting from scratch. I will let you all know, I actually like the idea of that Dennis and Bryce brought up of encouraging the seal of climate literacy. I think that is something that we could possibly recommend. I like that. So if you all say that's a good idea, we can actually add that as one of maybe our first recommendation, possibly. And Jerry, I think you said we have up to 4, but we don't necessarily have to do 4. I feel like we did 3. Did we do 3 last year?
I do think that we had one less than the maximum last year.
Okay, yeah. So if we can get 4, that's great.
We had some language last year that wasn't included as a recommendation. It was like included in the intro, right? Is that what happened?
You know what? I think you're right, Tristan, is I think that we had one where they decided that was better off including in the messaging surrounding the report.
Yep, you're exactly right. And yes, and that happens after we have our general, our commission body meetings. I think it was 2 years ago, we spent almost the entire hour one time on just little things with ECO. So we don't want to go through that again. But thankfully, like Jared said, the process has been really fine-tuned since last year. So it's a much easier process, much more simple, much more, I'll just say overall, just a more simple process. So they don't want a lot of words. They don't want a lot of context. Again, I think Jared said 2 or 3 sentences, kind of gives you the idea, but we are identifying what agency we think could actually handle this recommendation. So for instance, if we were to choose this first recommendation as encourage or support, whatever we want to say for the seal of climate literacy, then we will be saying this will be directed to the General Assembly, I would imagine. So one thing that I probably did not think about doing was to ask to put this in the email that we sent out for the meeting invite, was to kind of have you all to come up with some ideas first. I didn't think about doing that. And I guess, none of us really thought about that at the time because we were concentrating on so many other things. But if you have some ideas now, if you have any possible recommendations that you would like to see ECO try to implement or try to to send forward to the governor, let me know now. You can put it in the chat. We can go ahead and start writing some about now. But we also want you to be thinking about some of these things between now and then. I mean, we all have a lot on our plates, but this is how we kind of start off. We need to get some ideas first. Is it something that really would something that ECO should do, or is it maybe something that could kind of go to another work group, and then we'll build on that. So we can get started with the first one here. I think the plan is that we'll talk more about this in depth on the next meeting, will be in June. And last year, it really benefited us to have a special meeting. We had a special meeting in July. I think it was a shorter meeting, more than a full hour and a half, just to kind of really nail down those recommendations, because we don't want to wait till the last minute to do it. We do have an August meeting, but the August meeting will be more so to kind of just fine tune things. So June is probably the main meeting. We'll come up with the entire recommendations. July special session. If we need that, we may not need that. Then August will kind of fine tune things so that we can go ahead and have that submitted by September 1st. So we have our first recommendation already. I like that.
And,
short, sweet.
and that language is just what I just put on the screen. No, we're not, of course, tied to that. And I'd be interested in particular for Bryce and Dennis, if you have language that you think would be particularly useful to share here.
I mean, that's short and to the point. I think it gets it across. I mean, you know, it sounds like they don't want too much information. It seems like it is missing, you know, some context, and you know, there's a part of me that just like really wants to like throw some hyperlinks in there, but you know, that's not what they're asking for, right?
Well, yeah, and oftentimes we have a chance to actually have more discussion with the commission about the recommendations, so they'll get more of the context at that point.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that looks great to me.
Okay, well, we can kind of, and again, we'll probably flesh it out a little bit further in our next meeting. That's a good starting point. And Tristan, you have a question or comment?
I don't want to give up on climate education month.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said I'm not ready to give up on climate education month.
So you mean pushing
or
that?
Is it time to move on? I think I still want to keep trying, making it a thing.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because we've discussed that internally as well. And I'm with you, Tristan. I mean, I would love to see this really go forward. And technically, we've only tried twice. I shouldn't say only, because those were very significant points. But we have tried twice, and just didn't really see any success. It doesn't seem like there's really a strong, healthy appetite for this right now.
Sure.
Yeah, Jared?
I'm also thinking like, oh, sorry, one last thought is that like I know April is also like flood awareness month. Is something that we get behind like education campaign during the month. And I'm wondering, like, did they get an official proclamation for it, or did somebody just decide and make it happen? So anyway.
Good question. I don't know. Yes, Jared.
I totally lost my train of thought. It'll come to me in a second. So just continue.
I know it's the time of day. No, we were saying, Tristan saying, we should not give up on Climate Education Month. Now, I know one of the things that we discussed with the recommendations was not to repeat recommendations from the previous years. Is that right, Jared?
Thank you, Jabari, because that's exactly what I was raising my hand to say. You got there. Is that the way the recommendations work is that any recommendation that's been put into an annual report is considered a standing recommendation. So that means that if we said that we should pass Climate Education Month, then that means that we have said it in perpetuity until it's passed. We should pass Climate Education Month. Now, you might notice that, hey, we said something about this 2 years in a row. First time it was week, then we upgraded it to month, and that was enough of a change that we were able to weasel that in, even though there might be an argument to be made that it still was redundant. So this time, if there isn't anything substantial we're changing about the recommendation, even if we're still saying that we want to support that legislation, it's the Maryland Climate Education Year. I like that, Tristan. Thank you. That wouldn't be a new recommendation. So we might still want to support that, if the commission or the committee decided to go that direction, wouldn't be a recommendation unless it was substantially changed. And I love it. Climate Education Year. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah, if you know, we tried for a day and then we tried for a year, like if we go or you know, if we go for a year and then they knock it down a month, then we still, you know.
If only, Tristan. Um, and Jared, maybe you can help me figure this part out. I don't know if this would be a recommendation or not, but what we were talking about earlier in this meeting about turning this over to a state agency to kind of handle the climate teaching portion. Would that be a
Yeah,
recommendation?
That absolutely could be a recommendation. So if you remember that there are really two audiences for our recommendations. The first is the General Assembly, and the second is the governor. The governor is, of course, the head executive for the state. So any executive agency under the governor, which would include agencies like MDE, like MSDE, like DNR, you know, all those agencies, you can issue a recommendation to them as well because they fall in that executive, you know, sphere.
Right.
So yeah, that could totally be a recommendation. Is that something you'd like me to write down?
Yes. I know it makes you sad, Tristan, but it's not like we're not giving everything away. We're just kind of giving them more authority to kind of take over, you know, the bulk of the teaching, because we did start it, and you're part of that. We initiated this. We're proud of it, and we don't want to see it go away. But we also know the resources and bandwidth that we have is just not really. It's not sustainable, for lack of a better word, of course. So. And, you know, again, we get a chance to vote on this. If we decide we don't like this recommendation, we could change it another time. So I like those two for now. I mean, are there any other recommendations that you all can think of at this particular moment? We can start off with these two. We can build on them. Anybody have any thoughts, suggestions, questions?
For my brain, it's going to work best to have a little bit of time to review previous ones and understand it and then come back to a future
Sure.
meeting. But
Okay.
I'm also so new to this group.
Okay. And would it be appropriate, and Jared, what do you think about maybe sending an email with that information to everybody on ECO to have everybody kind of thinking about this before the next meeting, have some ideas?
I would
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
that so much.
So here's what I'll do for everyone is I'll send out an email that includes the following things. So it's going to include that presentation that I showed you that has, you know, all the dates and the procedure around recommendations. It's going to include a link to where you can find all of the past reports that include ECO's recommendations over the last several years. And it's also going to include just these very basic notes that we've included today. And I'll also include, because it's not one of our recommendations, even though you can also find that on the commission website, the presentation that Dennis and Bryce shared with us today. So basically, we'll package all the materials that we've discussed around recommendations, and I'll share that out to the committee.
I love it. Thank you, sir. On that note, we'll really only have 6 more minutes anyway. Are there any other questions about this part of the agenda as far as recommendations? But some of you are really quiet. I haven't heard from some of you today at all. Won't call you out this time. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and go to our last part of the meeting, which of course is the public comment. We do have to allow a few minutes for public comment. So at this point, are there any comments from the public? We'll open it up at this point. Okay, hearing none, seeing none. And I know, Mr. Silva, thank you for attending. I saw you have your comments in the chat, so we'll take a look at those. All right, well, any other announcements anybody would like to make? Well, it's the last day of Earth Month, so hopefully everybody had a great Earth Month, a successful and productive one. And again, we're keeping the registration open for a few more days. So if you know of any things you haven't submitted, or if you know others who might submit something in the state of Maryland, please go ahead and have them do it. I'm going to have some of our instructors here where I work at Bowie State to try to submit a few things as well, because I think we only have 2 or 3 this year, so I'm a little disappointed. And we've done a lot more, just people are just not putting it in the registration. So, but anyway, we want to get, like I said, and on a good note, we had a great month. We had a great event. Our registration numbers are incredible, and hopefully we'll get a few more. Maybe we can top 400. Who knows? But on that note, if there's nothing else, then we will see you all in a couple of months, if not before then. All right. Thank you. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate everybody. Take care.
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.